Welcome to another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about a good question also that was submitted by a fan. So, thank you guys for submitting your questions. They're really, really awesome questions, and I still have a list of them that I haven't gone over yet. But this one was very, very close to what I'm doing right now. So I'm going to address this one and kind of skip it ahead a little bit, skip it ahead of the list because it's very relevant to what I'm doing at the moment. The question is differences between raising a puppy to be a pet versus a working dog. So the difference of raising a puppy to be a pet dog versus raising a puppy to be a working dog. And if you follow my channel, if you follow me on social media, you know that I just got a puppy. Awesome puppy. His name is Cinco. And it's a puppy I got from RGR Malinois. So go check him out too. But, this puppy, the main purpose for this puppy is not to be a pet dog to just hang out and go for walks around the block and just chill and sleep by my bed. None of that. I wanted this dog to have one purpose, and that purpose is to be a working dog, just to be a strictly a working dog, a sport dog. Now, he's going to live a very fulfilled life. He's going to be very, very happy. I know a lot of people sometimes who don't understand working dogs. They feel like working dogs live a sad life because they're like, these poor working dogs, they're just in a kennel and they only come out to work and they go back in the kennel. They don't get to spend time with the family. And that's just all a bunch of bullshit. These working dogs, they're the happiest. They're so much happier than your average fat pet dog that doesn't do anything. Your average pet dog just maybe goes for a walk like maybe a couple of times a week. There is very little fulfillment. There is no purpose. I'm talking about your average pet dog. Okay, don't get offended if you have a pet dog and this doesn't apply to you. But your average pet dog, your average household that has a pet dog, they're very unfulfilled, very, very understimulated. There's just not any purpose to their life other than just consume kibble and water and get bored and occasionally get in trouble because they get in the trash. It's just a sad life that most dogs live. Whereas working dogs, and people who don't get this, I hear sometimes the comments, people who don't understand working dogs, when they see the retriever dogs, right? And they see these retriever dogs in outdoor runs or in their trailers, in their dog trailers, and they come out, they do some exercises, then they go back to the trailer, they go back to the run, and people just get sometimes so triggered by that, like, oh my gosh, these poor dogs. And they have no idea how happy these dogs are. They have a purpose. They're doing what they were bred to do. And even your average pet dog should have a purpose. Your average pet dog can do so well if they had a purpose. But people just don't get that. So now I'm going to get to the question. I just wanted to go over that a little bit to clarify what I meant by saying, this dog is strictly going to be a working dog. This dog he's already happy. He's a happy camper. Every time he's out, he's just having a blast. And you can see it in his training sessions. If you watch my videos on YouTube, I also have them on Instagram and Facebook. But if you follow me on YouTube, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's already the last 3 videos. And you'll see there on the image tag on the videos that this little puppy, and you see all the training sessions. This puppy just looks happy and thrilled, And if you look at my other videos with my older dog, Rust, you'll see the same thing. This dog just looks happy. All the videos of me working with these working dogs, these dogs just look thrilled because they're happy. They're very fulfilled. They have a purpose. It's just such an awesome life that these dogs have. So when we have a dog, and I do have quite a bit of experience with working dogs. My very first introduction into the dog world was with working dogs. My very first introduction professionally with dogs was with working dogs. And most of my career has been with working dogs. I have worked with pet dogs, and dogs that maybe needed some behavior, addressing some behavior issues. But for the most part, the bulk of my career has been with working dogs. So I have a little bit of experience in that area. I've also worked with a good handful of puppies, of working dog puppies and pet dogs as well. I've worked with working dogs in working puppies, from retriever dogs to cattle dogs and protection dogs, puppies, in that in those different categories of specialties. And I myself have already worked in my personal household, and within my circle, in my direct circle. So between my wife's dogs and my dogs, we've raised four puppies. Two of those puppies myself. So Russ, when he was a puppy, I raised him myself. Now this dog Cinco, I'm working with him right now. My wife's late dog, Grim, same thing. That was all her. I didn't do any of that, but that was all her. And I did give her some guidance. That was her first dog. And now the other dog, Samara, who we have been working with her since she was 8 weeks of age too. So I do have some experience. I'm not talking out of my ass here. I am talking from experience as well. And I'm going to go into another part of this, a little bit of a disclaimer, and that is that every person has their own sort of unique way to do things slightly different. I'm not saying drastically different, but slightly different. So maybe if you look at 5 different dog trainers or dog people that raise working dogs, or that have worked with working dogs since puppyhood, from puppyhood all the way to adulthood, I'm sure all those 5 people would be on the same page with a good portion of the technique in raising the puppy, but there will be some differences with each of those people. So what I'm going to tell you is sort of my perspective, which is in alignment in general, in alignment with just working dogs in general, and how people who work with working dogs, whether it's for retriever work or whether it's for protection work, it is in alignment with how these dogs are generally raised from puppyhood. But there are some things slightly different that I do that maybe other people don't do. So I am going to go a little bit into that, and I'm going to also tell you how I would raise, or how I suggest people raise and train their puppies if they're not going to be working dogs. So we're going to go right into that. So if it is a working dog, okay, a working dog, and for this purpose, let's assume the working dog. I'm not talking about a service dog. I know that there are working dogs, but I'm not talking about service dogs. The criteria for a service dog, even though it is a specialty of its own, it is a type of working dog. The criteria for that type of working dog is going to be completely different, okay? I'm also not talking about therapy dogs, even though they could be considered, technically, they could be considered working dogs. I'm not holding the therapy dog to the same standard, the same category that I'm going to be talking about here. So when I'm talking about working dogs, I'm talking about police dogs. I'm talking about sport dogs for protection work. I'm talking about retriever dogs. Dogs that are going to be very, very active physically. Okay. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. So when you are working with these dogs, okay, when you are raising these puppies, you have to think about the end in mind. You have to think about the end picture, the goal. The goal for a working dog is to do some sort of physical work. If it is a sport dog, it's going to be on the field and compete and overcome some obstacles, okay? Now, what obstacles that dog is going to overcome, it depends on the activity that it's going to be engaging in. But there will be some hardships that the dog will overcome as it matures and as it enters the trial field, or as it enters the field if it's not a sport dog. Okay, if it's a police dog, there will be some hardships here. It's not, these are working dogs that are going to be performing at a very high level, even if it's a police dog or or if it's a retriever dog or if it's a sport dog for protection work. There will be some obstacles that this dog will have to overcome to perform at a competitive level. Now, by hardships and obstacles, I don't mean this dog is going to have a hard, just pissed on life. But what I mean is part of the appeal of sports and part of the journey of a working dog, even if it's not in sports, in the sports field, part of that is for the dog to perform some sort of a job, some sort of work that will require that dog to work with stamina, to have that intensity and that passion behind it. So let's give you a couple of examples. If I have a dog that I'm going to be raising and it's going to be, let's say the end goal for this puppy is going to be to be a retriever. Okay. Now that's not my area of specialty, but I have worked with retriever dogs and to a very minor extent, to a very minor degree. So I'm not the subject matter expert in the retriever world, but I know enough of it to tell you kind of how it goes. So if I have a dog that is going to be doing retriever work, if it's a puppy, one of the things that this dog is going to have to do, it's going to have to retrieve. It's going to have to be outdoors. It's going to have to be performing this job, which, by the way, when I say job, to the dog, it's never a job. To these working dogs, if they're properly selected, it's not a job. It's just something they love to do. It's an activity. So they're going to have to be performing these activities under some adverse conditions, some cold weather, some hot weather. I'm talking about the retriever dog here, okay? They're going to have to show relentlessness. They're going to have to show perseverance. They're going to have to show tenacity. They're going to be going through obstacles, and they're going to have to, their patience and their determination is going to be tested. So you want these dogs in the retriever category, you want them to be very confident in their environment. You want them to be very bold in their environment, to go, I'm going to go through this brush and this and that and the other so that I can get the end prize, right? So these dogs are basically, these puppies are going to be playing, and when they're playing, they're going to be practicing what the end in mind will be. So I'm not saying that these dogs are not going to be house dogs. They can be house dogs, and a lot of them are house dogs, depending on the person that raises and works with these dogs, which I want to talk a little bit about that as well. So you look at these working dogs as puppies, you have to look at the end goal, right? If it's going to be a protection sport dog, like in my case with Cinco. So Cinco, right now, he's 10 weeks of age. Now, what Cinco is going to be doing is he's going to be participating in PSA, Protection Sports Association. Now, PSA is a sport that is going to test the dog's courage. It is going to test the dog's determination. It's going to test the dog's toughness. And as the levels, even with the lowest level in PSA, it's still testing the dog's character. Even at the lowest possible level, the dogs are still being tested. That's why a lot of dogs, they don't do well. And even in the lowest level, even in the PDC, some dogs just don't do well. They don't have the character. They don't have the determination. They don't want it that much. And so when they're tested, the dogs go, screw this. This is not that important to me. So selection is always important. Okay, it's always important. But once I have selection, I also want to look at what I'm going to be doing with this dog. So in this case, for Cinco, it's going to be PSA. There's a lot of pressure in PSA. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to introduce a lot of pressure to Cinco and just scare the crap out of him, because I see some people do that, and then they just end up screwing out the puppies, and then they end up washing puppies. Like they end up getting rid of them, which is fine. That's their choice. That's perfectly okay. If they're happy with that and that's how it works out for them, hey, more power to them. They're looking for like that one gem, right? That one puppy that you could just drop the sky right next to them and they won't even flinch. And I get it. We definitely want these dogs to be around. But I'm not doing that. So how I'm doing it with Cinco is, and Cinco's a nice puppy too. I've seen some of the stuff that the breeders were doing with him when he was a little bit younger. And he definitely has a pretty high tolerance to environmental factors. But one thing that I'm doing is I'm really working on his tenacity. I'm really like working on his determination, and I'm encouraging that frustration. I'm encouraging that boldness. So I'm encouraging the possessive postures. I'm encouraging the front paws wrapped around my leg. I'm encouraging the jumping up on me. The shoving his head in my pocket so that he could get all the treats in my training vest pocket. I'm just encouraging through opposition reflex. I'm encouraging the pushing and the shoving into my space, because I want to let him know at a very young age, you have to be bold. You have to be bullheaded and bold to get what you want. In this case, it's food. So every time that he eats, he's training. So his training sessions or his meal times are never wasted. All of his meal times, since I've had him, all of his meal times have been training sessions. Now, the average person might go, oh my God, that's inhumane. That's terrible. You're making this poor dog work for his food. That's horrible. But in reality, he's doing exactly what he loves to do. No animal just gets hungry and then nature goes, here you go, buddy. You're hungry. Here's a nice platter full of everything you need. No, every organism out there in nature, when they're hungry, they have to expend some energy to get these calories, right? They have to burn some calories to get the calories. So every animal out there, including humans, including modern humans, right? You have to work for what you want. Nothing in life is free. So when I arrange his meal times around training sessions for him, like I'm not just giving him the food, like he's having to earn it, but in a way that is very enjoyable. If you see the training sessions, if you haven't seen the videos, I strongly suggest you watch them so you can see how happy he is and how successful he is, because I'm making it so that he's successful, right? and they're like tiny little games. Like I'm pushing him away, he pushes forward, click, you're gonna get fed. I push him away again, he pushes forward, click. I'm letting him know, push back, dude, push back, and that's how you get what you want. Push back, and that's how you get what you want. You jumping up on me, that's how you get what you want. Shove your head, like just bulldoze your head into my treat pocket of my vest, and that's how you get what you want. And now the latest sessions that I did today is good. I like the bullheadedness, but now it's time to think a little bit. Look at me, and that's how you get what you want. Look at me, that's how you get what you want. So a lot of just tenacity that I'm encouraging. And I did the same thing with Rust. Same exact thing, right? When we go from point A to point B, Rust too, doing the same thing with Cinco, doing from point A to point B. I'm either, carrying you, we get there, we do the work, you show your tenacity, you earn your food, you just feel like a king, just freaking earning your food, and then I'm going to carry you, back to wherever you need to be. That way, all that power and all that focus is on the training session and on me, and then you don't even have to think about going to the crate so that you can chill for a little bit. Right, I'm just gonna carry you. I'm gonna take you there. Obviously, you're gonna have some water. The potty breaks. You're gonna hang out too. He's not just a machine. He is hanging out too. He's spending time outside, exploring, being a puppy. But the bulk of his time outside is to show tenacity. He just freaking loves it. You can tell how passionate he is about this. Just happy dog, doing exactly what he loves to do. So for a working dog, the end in mind for him, the end goal for him is once he's on the trial field, a little bit down the road, once he's old enough and he has enough training to be on the trial field, and he's going to be working with decoys that are not going to be his friend. They're going to be there to test him, to test his character. I will have built so much and encouraged so much tenacity and so much bullheadedness into him by that point, that the idea will be that no matter what obstacles lie ahead of me, I am going to get what I want. Now, obviously, that does come with a little bit of a price too, right? This is where you have to be smart, and you have to go, okay, dude, I love the bullheadedness and I love the tenacity, but we also have to think. You don't want just bullheadedness, tenacity, and then now the dog goes, screw you, I'm going to go what I want every single time. You want to make it so that the game is beneficial even when we introduce the rules. I think, dude, the rules are there to help you. Right? The rules are there for your benefit. They're there to enhance the game, not so that you lose the game, not so that the game sucks, but to enhance the game. That is that nice fine line between rules being a pain and being conflictive versus the rules being there as just part of the game. Right? I don't want to have to kick his ass to have him do a nice heel. I didn't do that with Rust. I'm certainly not going to do it with Cinco. Right? So now with Cinco, I'm a much better trainer with him than I was with Rust. Rust taught me so many valuable lessons that I can now apply to Cinco and any other dog that I work with afterwards. So Rust, I love that dog because he was a very difficult dog. He had so many deficiencies that I worked really hard to overcome, that I'm still working hard to overcome. But he just made me a much better trainer. So Cinco is much better off because of Rust. And but anyway, going back to the whole tenacity thing. So I want him to be bullheaded, right? And I want the rules to be there to help him and serve him, not to be a hindrance, not to let him know the rules are there to make you lose. Now, if I was working with a pet dog, if it was working with a client and a client told me, hey, I just got this puppy and I'm going to raise it so that it's my companion dog, And even if they were to tell me, oh, I like to go on hikes, so he's going to be my hike companion, that's nice and all, but you're still primarily going to have this dog as a pet. So if it's going to be a pet and it's your average client, or your average client tells me, hey, I just got this puppy, what should I do with this puppy? I would definitely tell them, okay, here's what we're going to do. There's, your puppy is already probably has a lot of determination, depending on the temperament of the puppy, of course. But typically, your puppies are pretty determined, pretty curious, pretty bullheaded to a degree. So when they have that, I don't want to necessarily encourage and capitalize on it and go, yeah, more power, buddy, more frustration. Certainly, it is going to help me to keep the dog motivated for some of the things that it's going to learn. But what I will spend more time encouraging that pet dog, that puppy, remember, keep in mind the end goal. Right? The end goal is this puppy is going to primarily be a companion dog. Primarily. Yes, it's going to go on hikes, hopefully. Yes, it's going to have plenty of physical exercise, hopefully. But the main goal is for this dog to be pretty calm, to be not much of a hassle. You have to take into account the selection of the dog, of course, the temperament of the dog. But regardless of that, when I have that puppy, or if I'm helping a client with that puppy, I'm going to say, hey, let's find all of these subtle opportunities in which your dog shows calm behavior, and we're going to reward that calm behavior. So if the puppy jumps on you, we're not going to reward that, okay? Puppy jumps on you, we're going to wait till the puppy stops jumping, then we're going to reward that. So any little bit of shoving and pushing that this dog gives, we don't want to encourage that too much, because we're not talking about a dog trainer here. We're talking about your average pet owner. And if we encourage that a little bit too much, that puppy eventually gets bigger. Eventually, that puppy goes from being 8 weeks of age, 10 weeks of age, to 2 years of age, a year and a half of age, even 10 months of age. This dog now could potentially weigh 50 pounds, 70 pounds. And now all the jumping and bullheadedness and pushing that got encouraged when he was 8 weeks of age are now going to be a tremendous hassle for this family, for this owner. So I want to be careful with that, right? So your average pet dog's puppy, we're going to encourage and capture these calm behaviors. We still want this puppy to have an outlet. We still want this puppy and this pet dog to have a purpose, okay? And even if this person does sports, that even if it's not on a very high competitive level, but even if it's like nose work, agility, dog diving, something that will give this pet a purpose, that's great, that's awesome. Go ahead and do that. But look at it, right? Most of the time, this dog will probably be a pet, a companion. Now, that doesn't mean that the competitive sport person is not going to have their dog be a companion. People raise their dogs differently. My working dog is not laying on the couch and sleeping on my bed. That's not how I do it. That's a personal preference. And, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm not the only one who feels this way, by the way. There are dog trainers that I really look up to, that I've taken plenty of tips from, that do it this way. Dave Croyer being one of the big ones. He's been a big influence on how I do things too. And if you, I'm gonna plug Dave Croyer here in a little bit. I get no commission out of doing this, but if you check out Dave Croyer TV, and if you just look up Dave Croyer, he has a membership website, super cheap, unbelievably cheap for the amount of knowledge that he pours into that website. It baffles me how much information is on there. and how little he charges for all of that information. It's like super, super low. And I've seen other dog trainers, still good dog trainers, okay, good authorities in their field, that give a fraction of the information that Dave Croyer gives and charge way, way more. So like, what Dave Croyer charges on a monthly basis for all his entire video library, you look at all the information, like he's got hours and hours and several hours. You could watch it every day and still have plenty more to watch, and he still keeps uploading content onto his membership website for like a very low monthly fee. Again, I'm not getting I'm not getting a dime out of this, by the way. I'm getting no benefit out of this. It's just something that I like to do because he's incredibly helpful, and I feel like more people need to be aware of who he is and how much he offers. But like I've purchased other dog trainers videos, and even though they're good, they're really good dog trainers, good information. Like you're looking at some of these videos that will cost you like $100, like $80 to $100 for like an hour and a half worth of information. Still good information, but I'm like, oh, that was good. But damn, that was like $80. Oh, damn, that was like $100, and I'm willing to pay for it. If the information is there, it's good information. I don't have a problem paying for it. I don't have a problem with that. I believe people should be paid for the contributions that they give to the community. So I am very happy to do that. But then I look at the stuff that Dave Croyer does, and I'm like, man, like this guy just pours so much, has poured so many years into his craft and all of the knowledge that he's putting out there, and he's charging like a very small amount. So anyway, I wanted to kind of tell you a little bit about that because Dave Croyer is one of those people that his working dogs are his working dogs. They're not sleeping on the bed with him. He's not cuddling with them. He doesn't take them for walks around the park and watches TV with them, laying at his feet. His working dogs are his working dogs. He is one of those people that feels that way. I've felt that way also for a while. That was sort of my introduction into the dog world too. It was like, this is what the working dog is. And people who don't do it that way, it's perfectly okay. I know people who their working dogs are their pet dogs. Here's another guy, Koi Pham from Canine Working Dogs Dallas. Koi Pham is an awesome trainer, really good training director for his PSA club. And a lot of the videos that I watch that he puts out on his social media, his competition dog is like his house dog. And I know other people that do it the same way. Their competition dogs, their working dogs are their house dogs, and their house dogs have an off switch and an on switch. And there is nothing wrong with it. That's just how they choose to do it. Right? It's not that one's better than the other. I mean, some people might feel like this way is better than the other, but to me, they're just different approaches. I've been asked, what do you think is better? To me, my working dogs are my working dogs, right? They do hang out. They do have time to be dogs. They're not just robots, right? They are hanging out. They are being dogs. They are being silly. They do hang out, but primarily my working dog is my working dog. I want my working dog to enjoy his alone time, to sleep, rest, and then when he's nice and rested, we're working, right? We're just doing this awesome activity. Now, also, another thing to keep in mind is my working dogs, they get a lot of activity. We're not just working like twice a week during club. We're working every single day. Every time that dog comes out for a potty break, for mealtime, he is working. So he's super happy, right? So there's plenty of work throughout the day. It's always been like that for Russ since he was a puppy. And his alone time, he enjoys his alone time. He even looks for his crate. Okay, he just likes to relax in his crate. He's just so super chill. He doesn't have to worry about, people waking him up randomly. Like, he's just comfortable there. And that's why I'm doing it with Cinco. I have no problem with that. And I also don't have a problem with people who have their working dogs as pets. That works for them, and I'm happy for them. And clearly it works for their dogs, and that's perfectly fine. This is that part that I was saying earlier. How I do things might be slightly different than how somebody else does things. And if it works, hey, who am I to tell them don't do it that way? It clearly works for them. They're happy with the end result. And that's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, the difference is this. Your working dog, if you have it as a puppy, typically you want to encourage that determination. You want the toughness and the passion for its work, and the tenacity, and even some of the frustration to be encouraged in a way that is constructive, of course. But we're encouraging a lot of that determination. Whereas a pet dog, a puppy as a pet dog, yes, I will use that determination because it's very helpful. Want to keep that dog nice and motivated. We don't want these dogs to be deflated. We want them to be nice and happy and still passionate about learning these new behaviors. However, I'm going to be a little bit more reserved with how much tenacity and determination I'm encouraging with that pet dog, because again, the end goal for that dog is to be a companion. Okay, so that's where those differences are. Now we can get into a lot more detail, and we could really stretch out this episode. And I could tell you very quickly, even nutrition wise, you need to look at that too. Your working dog is, if you're working them consistently, which it should be if it is a working dog, now you look at nutrition being a big key of their daily routine. Right? A working dog that is working and it's showing a lot of power every day throughout these little training sessions, they're burning more calories compared to your pet dog that is, maybe running a couple of times a day, but they're not like just crazy like some of the stuff that we do with the working dogs. So the nutrition is something that you also want to look at. Now, the purpose of this episode is not to go into what type of feeding or dog food, kibble versus raw, or what type of kibble. I'm not going to go into that. But that would be up to you. But I just wanted to let you know also that even nutrition is something that you want to look at and go, this is also going to be slightly different because I have a working dog. The stuff that this dog is doing requires more out of him, takes more out of him, and I need to look at that as well. So these little details of raising a working dog versus raising a pet dog that you want to pay attention to. Also, veterinary care. A lot of veterinarians primarily deal with pet dogs. There aren't that many veterinarians that specialize in working dogs. Now, your average veterinarian, primarily works with pet dogs, and occasionally they are going to work with, with the working dog that is a companion, right? So, like, they will get the cattle dog. They will see the border collie that that occasionally does walk into their office. But typically these veterinarians, your average veterinarian, is not dealing with these working dogs that are constantly working, that their metabolism is different, their tolerance is different. I've seen it happen. I've taken Russ to the vet before where they had to sedate him. And they double dosed him. But first they gave him the regular dose for his weight, and Russ was just like, whatever, I don't know what you're doing here. And the vet and the vet techs, they were like, oh my God, he's usually we see some changes by now. And Russ is like, hey, what's up? Like normal. And I'm like, okay, well, let's give him a double dose. They give him a double dose of the sedative, and he just barely slowed down. They waited him out, barely slowed down, and they were like, oh my God, I've never seen that. So they increased the dose, and then like by the third time they increased the dose, then he started to slow down, not even that much. Then he started to slow down a little bit, and they were all like, oh my God, that is just insane. Like, I've never seen that. And this happens with working dogs. These dogs are different. They're wired different. They're bred to be different. Their tolerance is much higher. Typically, their metabolism is different. These veterinarians sometimes don't get these little things. Like, they're like, oh, how much are you feeding him? I'm feeding him this much. They're like, wow, that's a lot. Why are you feeding that much? Because it's a working dog. This dog is burning way more calories than your average couch potato dog that doesn't really do much. So, like, there was a period of time with Rust at about a year of age. He was eating like 8 cups of food a day. This is when his metabolism really sped up. This is when he left puppyhood, right before, he was about a year of age or so. His metabolism sped up so much. Again, working dog, bred and wired to be a working dog. On top of that, he is working. Yeah, I mean, he was eating a lot of food, and people who don't understand that, like, my God, that dog eats so much. You don't realize how many calories he's burning. Then once he got a little bit older, then his metabolism evened out a little bit, so he doesn't eat as much as he did when he was about a year old, but he still eats more than your average dog at his weight eats. So all these little things that you want to pay attention to, especially if you're new with working dogs. If you're very new to working dogs, you have to pay attention to that. You have to realize that your average veterinarian doesn't understand that. This is why if you take your working dog, I know I have friends that have had this complaint. You take your working dog to a veterinarian, first thing they're going to tell you is, okay, one of the first things they'll tell you is, let's make an appointment to neuter him. And I'm like, no. And the vets are like, what? What do you mean no? And you're like, well, I need his testicles to be there so that as he grows and matures, all the testosterone makes him stronger physically and and temperament-wise. I want the flow of testosterone to give him power physically, which it does do that, and emotionally. I want him to be powerful in every sense of the word. So I need him to have his testicles because he is going to be a working dog. He's going to need every bit of power and confidence that he can get. And if we take those testicles out when he's too young, physically he's not going to develop to his fullest potential. And, and he's not going to develop the full confidence that he would if he had his testicles. So no, we want to leave him intact. So you have to realize that too, that your average veterinarian does not understand working dogs. Okay? So you have to be aware of all these things. If you're not new with working dogs, I mean, it's not a big deal. I can take my working dog to any veterinarian, and if the veterinarian tells me you should do this, and I know it's not to my dog's best interest, I'll just go, no, I'm not going to do that. But if you're new and you don't know, and you get this working dog, and obviously you go to the veterinarian tells you should do this, and you're like, well, crap, he's a veterinarian, so maybe I should do that. You have to do a little bit of research and realize working dogs are much, much different. Nutrition has to be different. Veterinary care has to be different. So all of those things. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up on this one. I don't want to drag the episode any longer than it already is. So thank you guys for your suggestions. Bring me more suggestions. That was an awesome suggestion. I still have more too that I need to make episodes on. I thank you so much for the feedback. Thank you so much for the suggestions. I really appreciate it. Make sure you go to YouTube. Dog Training is My Passion. Facebook, Instagram, Dog Training is My Passion. Subscribe. And check out my books on Amazon, William Garrido, Garrido. And stay tuned for the fourth book that is still in the works. I'll see you guys in the next episode.